Good evening and welcome to the show. Coming to you from Grand Bahama. We're here all week. It's great to have all of you joining us. Well, if it's one island that knows how to handle bad weather, it's the island of Grand Bahama. With decades of navigating some of the worst storms, hurricane season brings out the painstaking memories of the devastation that residents here have witnessed. It's a bit of mixed emotions here on the island. While residents are pretty much happy they won't experience the wrath of Hurricane Milton, for some it's too close for comfort. Not to worry though, we will get you through the next day and a half of bad weather until this storm is no longer near anyone or threat to anyone. Preparation, however, though, is key. And while we believe that we won't suffer any severe blow, it's a great exercise, at best, pretty much. It's a great exercise in preparedness. Tonight, we check all the boxes to ensure the machinery is working for this and future threats. But first, obviously, things are taking place throughout Grand Bahama. Residents are preparing for any kind of weather systems. And our news team is out and about to speak to them today. Here's Cleopatra Murphy with that story.
Get prepared. It's a dangerous one.
As Hurricane Milton barrels towards Florida, expected to bring with it deadly storm surge of up to 20 feet. Although not directly in its path, Grand Bahamians are in full preparation mode, having learned valuable lessons from Hurricane Dorian.
Persons are taking the storm with a bit of caution. I don't know how overreactive they are, but they are showing some sign of caution. They are picking up basic hurricane items. This has been going on basically from the hurricane season, but within the last 2 days, we have seen an uptick in person shopping for hurricane supplies.
At Dolly Madison Home Center, General Manager James Rowe says items like batteries, flashlights, fuel canisters, portable stoves, tarps, and other essentials are flying off the shelves as business has seen a boost due to Hurricane Milton. Florida resident Lou DiMartino will ride out the rough seas on his boat with family, but has stocked up on food and other supplies. Not overly concerned, he still offers this advice.
No point in staying if it's going to be a dangerous storm. Just get out. There's nothing worth, risking your life over, Otherwise, just do the normal prep, and stay home is sometimes safer.
After having experienced the terror of Hurricane Dorian, Christine Flowers takes nothing for granted and encourages others to be proactive.
It's serious because you don't know what's going to happen. Get your stuff ready. Don't wait too late.
Another resident, Alfred Smith, who stopped for a portable stove, says he is actively monitoring the storm.
You got to always take precaution and be concerned because it can shift at any given time based on the atmospheric conditions. So you got to be ready for it.
As Milton gets closer to landfall in Florida, Smith says Grand Bahamians are all too aware of the devastating impact of hurricanes, having weathered Dorian, and are far from complacent.
They know exactly what a hurricane can do, and so I think they're more aware and they're more conscious of the dangers of such events. And so they are really, whenever there's a caution out there, they've really taken the necessary step to be prepared.
Grand Bahama expects to experience wind and heavy rain associated with Hurricane Milton, and while not expected to get a direct hit, officials advise, prepare in advance, and continue to monitor the storm. For the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, I'm Cleopatra Murphy.
All right, we have all the experts here tonight to talk to us and take us through what's happening to ensure that people get through even these kinds of weather systems and to make sure that people know exactly what they should be doing. We're going to talk to the experts right after the break, so stay with us. You're watching The Rundown here from Grand Bahama. We're back after this.
That's the bear of the Bahamas. I like to go down. Oh yeah.
JBI, lemon and lime.
One of the best products you can find anywhere. This is one of my favorites, and I have lots of favorites at JBI.
This is very rich. I put this in everything, whether I'm baking, whether I'm doing peas and rice, coconut and rice, or you're doing some curry and you want your cream to be in your curry, you can do everything with that.
Oh, I love this with my nice lime. It goes with my tuna salad. When I put that lime and that great food, spicy food I love. So try JBI, lemon and lime.
Try JBI. Happy anniversary to JBI.
JBI to the world.
Thank you, Bahamas.
We're coming for y'all again.
Are you ready for the hardest sports show on the market? It's called The Timeout. Sundays on the ZNet Television Network. In our first show, 4 decades of sports in the country.
Welcome to the Rundown. We're coming to you from Grand Bahama tonight, and it's so good to have all of you who are joining with us. I see those of you who are in the Lion's Den and joining us on YouTube as well. Thank you for being here with us, and we're seeing all of your comments and your questions and concerns. You would have heard earlier tonight, obviously, the Prime Minister would have just addressed the nation, talking about preparedness. Really, that's the bottom line here. It's not to invoke fear or invoke panic or alarm, but simply just to ensure we're prepared. And like I said before, if at best this is just a preparation test, and to make sure that you know what to happen in the eventuality we are facing a direct hit of a storm, you would know what to do, and you're making sure that you have things in place. Still in the hurricane season, and yes, it's still peak as we move out of the peak season into what we call the latter part of the hurricane season. It's still important to be prepared because it just takes one storm. And if you're not prepared for it, then it could be devastating to you. But again, we're not here to bring panic. I'm not here to get people concerned overly, but just to ensure that you are prepared and that you can navigate through the next few days of weather that you're expected to have, and then we'll all be able to breathe a sigh of relief on the other side 2 days from now when it's all done and gone with. And our prayers, of course, obviously go to the people in South Florida and in Florida who are going to experience the brunt of this storm. Our hearts and prayers are with them. I want to get into now talking about what's happening here on the island in the Northern Bahamas as far as preparation. These people here know how to prepare. They've been through the worst of it, and so now they know how to be prepared and what should be happening and what to get in place. I want to introduce them, of course, Grand Bahama Island Administrator Kenwood Cartwright and Tammy Mitchell from Disaster Management Unit in the Ministry for Grand Bahama. Welcome to the Rundown. Great to have both of you here with us.
Thanks for having us.
I want to begin, obviously, talking about your roles during the storm, because people obviously want to know, okay, we know the DRM is there, we know the Ministry of Grand Bahama is there, we know island administrators are there. How do you coordinate what it is that you do, and what is it that you try to seek to do whenever there's a threat of severe weather?
Well, as the island administrator, I am the chairman for the Disaster Risk Management Consultative Committee.
Oh, so it falls on your shoulder.
Falls on my shoulder. And so that committee is made up of what we call emergency support functions, which of course are represented by various government agencies and departments. Those agencies and departments bring their expertise, they bring their resources, and we come together to prepare in the coming months for any hurricane or any disaster that we may face. When it comes to a time like this, we do what we call activating the EOC, and we have a representative from each of those support functions to come sit on the EOC so that we could best discuss, plan according to what's happening currently, whether it be to make calls such as activating shelters, whether we need to help with assistance with removing elderly persons to get them where they need to be. And so we activate so that we could make the best decisions for those concerned at that time.
So you don't just come together because there's a threat now. This is something that's ongoing through the hurricane season.
Ongoing. Every last Monday of each month, we get together. In terms of a hurricane or a disaster or threat, then we call a meeting, and we get together much sooner than that anticipated monthly meeting. And what I could say about being in Freeport, we come together as a group. Everyone has learned from past experiences. Sometimes it gets little draining mentally because when person's in planning, you have to think back some of the experiences that you already went through. But I think we've learned, and we came together, and we overcame a lot of obstacles that we would have faced before. And I see that we are on the correct path, and we seem to be better prepared than we would have been prepared at previous times.
Karen Mitchell, let's talk about the role of Disaster Management Unit in the Ministry for Grand Bahama. How do you function and what is the purpose of it?
Okay, well, my role with now with Ministry for Grand Bahama, I actually worked for NEMA in my past. I was actually the supplies officer here for the last 5 years plus. And now with the Ministry for Grand Bahama, it's given me the opportunity to now expand that role to assist the island administrators as well as all of the emergency support function groups, the private and the public sector, not only with emergency response preparations, but also training and also any of their needs, even if it means as simple as updating their emergency response plans. So I actually play that key role as a certified instructor as well. So I'm able to teach a lot of the courses as well and help everybody on the island, not just in Grand Bahama, but throughout the Bahamas in preparation, mitigation, and response activities.
I know there are different levels of emergency plans activation. Where are we now with this particular storm and the impacts that it could have? How are we activated?
Well, we started this morning partially activated, which means that only certain emergency support functions are to report to the EOC. At this point, we are fully activated, but we're fully activated just for monitoring purposes. And so currently in the Operations Center, we have representatives from most of the ESFs already here, just collaborating to see what needs to happen as we work with the Met Office and the DRM Authority to make sure we get all the information and to make the best decisions for Grand Bahamians.
Let's talk about the preparation that's taking place now for Tropical Storm Milton. And we call it Tropical Storm Milton because at worst, you expect the tropical storm conditions, not hurricane conditions from the northern Bahamas. And that's why it's referred to as Tropical Storm Milton, even though it's a hurricane.
Right. Yeah, well, some of the key things that we're doing now, as the administrator mentioned, we're identifying the shelters that would possibly be open. We're ensuring that all of the emergency support function groups have activated their plans to some level, because even though we come as one body, you know, every entity has its own emergency response plan. So it's calling their team members together to say, hey, we're now fully activated. Who is assigned to the Emergency Operations Center? Who is going to be on rotation? Who is going to be posted, for example, with the Defense Force, with their officers, who's going to be posted at the shelters, who from the Public Hospital Authority. So we're calling everybody in now and asking them to provide us with that information so we know who to directly reach out to. Same thing with the utility services, particularly here in Grand Bahama. We've already received our reports from the utility companies as well as the power company that, you know, what their plans are in terms of there's no planned shutdowns, but, you know, particularly if winds get at a certain speed for the safety of the equipment, they will do what they have to do. But until they advise the committee or the EOC as it's activated, then we don't put out anything until they tell us. So it's important. The main thing is sharing of information and just asking everybody to remain calm and follow your emergency procedures.
Again, it's important to help people understand. These things are being put in place not because they anticipate that there would be a need for it, but in the event there is, it's already in place and already activated. So we're not saying that you're going to need to leave your home and evacuate. We're saying in the event that something happens and there's flooding, you have some place to go to. So don't get alarmed and say, oh Lord, they have shelters over, we got to pack up and leave. No, we're just saying that in the event, because no one can predict Mother Nature, that there's flooding in your particular area and it gets to a point where you believe you need to leave home, there is some place to go. Doesn't mean you have to go there unless there is a need to move out. Same thing for the emergency shutdowns, electricity. Doesn't mean electricity is going off, right? At least not on its own. What it means is that if there's a need because of high winds to control so we don't lose the power connectivity, they may turn it off as a precaution. Doesn't mean it's going to go off. Just means in the event. So pretty much what you're doing is setting in place and activating to ensure that there is support should there be a need to access those services, that they are actually there.
Yes, and like we said earlier, it's monitoring what's going on and making the preparations available so that the island of Grand Bahama and its residents will know exactly step by step what it is that needs to be done. And even with the Ministry for Grand Bahama, a lot of our information, just as well, we're sharing it on the Facebook pages, so the Ministry for Grand Bahama has that uploaded. And we're tying in into all of the networks from the Met Office and also, as well as, of course, ZNS. So we rely on you to assist us, as you're doing now, with getting the information out to the general public.
Obviously, people ought to know what to do in this hurricane season. This should not be new talk.
No.
And I always tell people, you don't have to panic when you hear there's bad weather coming, because these are just things that we keep reminding people you ought to have in place whenever you're in hurricane season. You cannot take it for granted. We live in the hurricane belt, and while we have great weather, this is what happens during hurricane season. There's a potential that you could have some bad weather that could have adverse effects. Some people may go through an actual hurricane and never receive damage, and go through a regular bad weather night and have flooding when nobody else is having any kind of conditions. So it's unpredictable as to how it can impact you. And that's why the watchword is always preparation. Be prepared. Make sure that you know what you have to do. If you have to do something, make sure you have the necessary tools in place, because we don't want payments to do what you like to cry and say, no one told us. They didn't warn us. They didn't prepare us. And that's why we're making sure the efforts are put in place so that you can say, okay, I'm aware of what's happening. I know how to navigate doing that. Now, of course, the concern is always residents in low-lying areas. What is your advice to those persons?
Well, definitely with residents in low-lying areas, that's the primary ones that we're actually looking at, because based on the weather reports, we would have already identified all of the flood zones on the island, and particularly the ones that may be hardest hit. So we have advised them to take the necessary precautions, whether it's getting sandbags or making sure your home area is clear from debris so that it doesn't hamper any of your evacuation efforts. We've asked them to, if they know for sure that they can't stay in the home, this is where you now seek shelter with family members or friends, or if the shelter is activated, then this is where you go. But take all of the necessary precautions that everybody should know by now that where you live. Right. Because I mean, I've worked every hurricane since Floyd in '99 to Dorian. And I can tell you, I've seen all of the changes on the island of Grand Bahama. So basically, we know, and we try to advise them, do and take the necessary precautions.
Inspection of shelters. Talk to us a little bit about what's going on, and do we have shelters activated and where?
Well, the shelter inspection is a very good process that happens. It is important to us that we make sure that the shelters are safe before we allow them to be used by the general public. So in Grand Bahama and in Freeport especially, there's a team of technical experts put together with representatives from the Ministry of Works, Ministry of Social Services, who has responsibility for shelters. There's also environmental health. There's the technical team of the Port Authority that also assists. Myself as the administrator.
As you can see, we have up right now the Grand Bahama shelter list, so as you're talking, people can see what are the shelters that are official shelter lists that should be activated. Now, all of those going to be activated?
No.
Okay.
No. So we identify them in levels, which would need to be activated first, and some of them are only activated after a hurricane. So they're not all activated for during the hurricane, but should that shelter remain safe and practical for use after a hurricane, you may have where one shelter that was used during the hurricane is overcrowded, and so after a hurricane and it's safe, even though that particular shelter would have not passed inspections for use during the hurricane, we can now ask some of these persons to relocate to that shelter, which could now house them after hurricane conditions.
Do you have what you're going to, are any of them activated in the event people need them? Which ones, do you know which ones are activated? Go ahead and tell us those.
Yeah, they've been identified by the Department of Social Services, and we can briefly give you the names. And again, they've been identified. And if there is a need, then social services will kick in. But the first one that we would have is the Foster B. Pestana Center, which is a special needs shelter where all of those persons will go. We have the Maurice Moore Primary School, which is designated for all of the residents of East End, Grand Bahama, the St. George's High School Gymnasium, and also the Bishop Michael Eldon School. And then in the 8 Mile Rock area, we have the 8 Mile Rock High School gym, which houses about 450 to 500 persons. So those are the ones that have been designated by the Department of Social Services.
All right. I want to talk about what should be in the shelter kits, and so we'll take on that. I think people want to know what they should have, not shelter kits, sorry, hurricane kits, what you should have in your hurricane kit and in your arsenal, because we do have a picture, and I want to be able to say exactly what we have in the kit. Should we go to that? Let's go to that now. It's up now. These are supplies that should have. Talk to us a little bit about the hurricane kit, because this is what you should have throughout the hurricane season, right? And why are these items important? Obviously, the emergency items are there as to what you should have. The first aid in case you're injured. Food items that should have. Things for your pet, accessories, and of course, paperwork that you should keep. Just briefly talk to us about the importance of this hurricane kit, because there's a lot of items on that. People ought to keep this. Talk to us about that.
Well, food is a given. You must take with you to the shelter food and water to sustain yourself and any family members that you may have with you. If you have the means, you should carry extra to help support others that may not have the means. Of course, with the emergency kit, flashlights, etc., should the power go off, should the generator fail, you would want to know that you're able to see your way around for your own safety protection. There have been times when you would have had to evacuate from a shelter. If you have to evacuate from a shelter, then you need to have your gear so that when you're out there, you could guide yourself, guide your family to give assistance. Obviously, first aid, should the need arise, there's any cuts, you know, when you're in places where there are extra persons around moving about, sometimes things mistakenly happen. Kids are running up and down. You want the well-being of everyone to be accounted for. Of course, social service will be there to provide assistance, as well as officers from the Royal Bahamas Defense Force will be there to provide assistance. But as best as possible, I didn't mention medication. If you need a certain medication, please take your medication with you. Medication is important. The life you save might be yours. It's not a practice of those that manage the shelters to distribute medication for obvious health reasons and stuff like that. And so we ask persons as best as possible, travel with your own medication. Pets, there's still an issue with pet-friendly shelters. That's something that we're working towards, but we aren't directly there yet. And so we ask persons with pets, if you have a relative that may not have to evacuate their homes, if they're able to keep their pet for you. And sometimes even when you're talking about evacuating, there's not always a designated shelter you have to go to. You could shelter with loved ones. You could shelter with friends as an option as well.
All right. Well, I think we're going to put up an emergency number in case people need to have the number to call. The number is on your screen in the event of an emergency. It's right there. It's 351-4902 or 351-4903, and that goes to Grand Bahama Emergency Operations Center, which is indeed activated. And again, we say all of this is precaution. We're not saying that we're going to need it, but in the event you do, it's better to be safe than absolutely sorry. All right, and also for you to know that frequent power outages remain a serious challenge on Grand Bahama Island, and one that is a major concern for many residents and businesses. And of course, when we come back, we will have two community activists who are here to voice their concern on the frequent power outages that Grand Bahama has experienced for the past several months. Thank you so much for being a part of the show, and we're back after this. Stay with us.
Beginning Monday, September 16th, it's the new lineup of ZNS News and Current Affairs, 6 p.m. It's What's Trending, Lifestyles in the Afternoon with Stacey Campbell Marshall, 6:30. We head to the north for the Bahamas Tonight Northern Edition, 7 p.m. It's the Bahamas Tonight National Report, followed by the Bahamas Tonight Access, now at 7:30. Then at 8 p.m., your nightly news analysis show, The Rundown with Clint Watson, and 11 p.m., the Bahamas Tonight at 11 with Royston Jones. It's a full lineup of the new ZNS, and it starts Monday, September 16th. Only the sun covers the Bahamas better.
Grand Bahama, Sunday, October 13th. Due to the logistics and unstable weather pattern, we had to take it inside the Grand Kind Ballroom. I'm a Boatman. Featuring KB, Gino D, Nishi LS, T-Mac, Sweet Emily, Elon Moxie, Funky T, Lil Joe Cartwright, Sherrod Taylor, Wilfred Solomon, Veronica Bishop, Stevie S, Mama D, Colin McDonald, Papa Smurf, Shine 242, Recon Bahamas, Chad Gully and the VIP, special guest from Turks and Caicos, the Provision Band, and host Super P. Sunday, October 13th at the Grand Lacaille Ballroom. Doors open at 6 p.m., showtime at 8 p.m. Admission $60. Tickets are available now at Pennyworth, Brenda's Booth, Coffees on the Bay, Gizmos and Gadgets, and Signature Choices. For more info, phone 819-2233 Bahamas and 649-231-0018. TCI, I'm a Boatman. Sunday, October 13th at the Grand Lacaille Ballroom. KB and Fred.
Live sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism, Ministry for Grand Bahama, and Extreme Order.
Welcome back to the Rundown from Grand Bahama. It's so good to have all of you online. We see you joining us and giving your input. We're just going to switch a bit to a different topic, but I still think it affects what we've been talking about here tonight. Residents and business owners on Grand Bahama say they're fed up with the frequent power outages that have plagued the island for the past several months. Tonight, Ramiko Knowles speaks with residents and business owners as they say enough is enough.
Just like that, blackouts have returned into Grand Bahama. The power outages come just 2 weeks after consumers were assured by the Grand Bahama Power Company that they would no longer experience service interruptions. In a statement issued on September 10th, GBPC officials said, "We do not foresee interruptions of service as we have added 7 new temporary generators to our fleet and returned a unit to service." However, on Tuesday, September 24th, customers were shocked when the power went out unexpectedly. Frustrated residents quickly took to GBPC's Facebook page to express their discontent. One user commented, "So what happened to the 7 generators added to y'all's fleet?" Another shared, "15 minutes after I came from the plantation work, the power went off. Sigh, tired, hot, and hungry." A third user raised a key question. Why are the temporary rental generators still temporary? When can we expect a permanent solution? Please advise your customers. As the power outages continue, residents are left with more questions than answers. And one thing remains clear. They are exhausted.
All of this culminate to say, hey, they're just taking advantage of all of us.
It has now been 72 hours of isolated blackouts, and questions remain about whether this situation will continue and how long it will last. Meanwhile, there has been no response from the Grand Bahama Port Authority or the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority, both who claim to be the city's regulators. In fact, the most recent communication from the port was regarding the completion of GBPC's rate plan proposal, which is currently seeking stakeholder input. The consultation period will conclude on November 4th, with a final decision anticipated by December 2nd of this year. However, for many residents, the answer is already clear.
They're not being held accountable at this time for all the power outages, and then the power bills is extremely high at this period.
ZNS News reached out to GBPC for an official response regarding the ongoing outages, but company representatives indicated that no one is available for comment. When asked if a statement would be issued to explain the reasons behind the outages, we were informed that none would be provided at this time. Attorney Park O'Deal remarking that the company's behavior is blatantly disrespectful and demonstrates a clear disregard for its clients.
I think that's a total abuse of power, and that's a result of having a monopoly, which we feel adamantly that that monopoly is expired and it should be taken away.
Thank you for that story, Ramiko. And of course, it obviously experiences and it demonstrates the frustration of residents who continue to deal with it. I want to bring in my guests now to talk more about this. Of course, Coalition of Concerned Citizens, Eddie Victor and Daquan Swain, who's been an activist and been speaking on this issue for quite a long time. Gentlemen, welcome to the Rundown. It's good to have both of you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Listen, I come from the capital where we've had our share of power outages and how frustrating it can be. And it was one thing we thought Grand Bahama pride itself in is having reliable power. But there seems to obviously be challenges with the company recently that it seems to be unreliable. The times I've been here, it's on, and then it's off, and then it's on, and then it's off. Let's start back to the issue. You've been speaking about this, Pastor Victor, let's start with you for some time now,
yes,
and still no relief. Talk to us about this fight.
Well, the thing is, our coalition, we began our campaign to lower the cost of electricity on this island in 2013. So we've been at it for 11 years. In fact, we have a Facebook page called Lower the Cost of Power, Grand Bahama. Wow. And everything we've done over the years, you can find it there. And it is not just the problem now of the power outages and these blackouts that we've been having and load shedding. But what we have is we have the highest electricity base rate cost in the Bahamas. Yeah. We also have an unstable delivery of power. When I'm talking about that, is that the current coming to the customers is not stable. This instability causes clocks to speed up, electric clocks. Wow. The clocks on your stove, the clocks on your microwave. It's been unstable, and now we have unreliable power. So this has been all of this happened over years. And so when you look at this situation now that we're faced with the power outages and the load shedding, what you have to realize is that years ago, Grand Bahama Power Company was generating more electricity years ago than what they're generating now. And so you have to ask yourself, well, if they were generating more electricity in the past, how come when they're generating less, they're having so much problems? The only thing that you can truly conclude is that over the years, the company has made a series of bad management decisions that has led to a catastrophic failure of the power generation at the plant. Right now, the last report we have, the power company owns 9 generators, only 5 are working.
Wow, that's a lot. That's out.
Yeah, only 5 are working, so 4 are out. And you have to also look at this. If you're generating less electricity and you have 2 solar farms connected to the grid, and you are having this catastrophic failure,
then it got to be something else.
You see, we got serious problems.
I don't bring in Daquan here because obviously you've been advocating for this long before many people jumped on the bandwagon. Right. And I guess the concern now is that persons are paying for a certain level of supply, but when you look at what's happening, it's not coming back, as he would have said, to the consumer. And in fact, not just coming back to the consumer, but a lot of what they say you are paying for is to improve the service, right? They said you were paying for to replace all of these grids and replace power poles after the last storms. And so this is going to allow us to be able to deliver top-notch service to you, and then you won't have to pay that price anymore. But we're seeing constantly that while you're still paying for the demand, you're not getting that service. What say you about that?
Yep, you're absolutely right. And, just to even piggyback off what Pastor Victor said, what we're experiencing right now in Grand Bahama is a company that is making bad decisions, and every bad decision that they make, we pay for it. So we pay for incompetence. So every time that they make a mistake, they offload, because what we have to remember is the operational expenses that that company face, they add those into the base rate that we pay. And if we actually look at the summary of what they released for the proposed rate increase, they want to now pass on more costs that they want to recoup in the fuel charge now. So they don't only want to charge you in the base rate, they want to now also charge you in the fuel charge. So if we go back, the Grand Bahama Power Company is supposed to be supplying 98 megawatts. 98 megawatts. Right now, we're operating at less than 50%. And half of that 50% is supplemental power, meaning rented generators. So that now means the operational cost to pay to rent those machines, the fuel cost to run those rented generators, we now have to bear that cost. And all of this is a result of failed maintenance. They weren't maintaining the machines the generators how they're supposed to. They weren't doing proper maintenance on their generational plants. So now, because of that, they're in a situation that they can't admit where the machines and the generators are beyond repair. So every couple of weeks, they're gonna go down. And they can't admit that because the last rate increase is when they were supposed to fix these issues. And the rate increase before that was when they were supposed to purchase new generators that's supposed to last 25 years.
So in your view, the rate increases they're not living up to the response of these rate increases. You increase it to make it better, but instead of making it better, it's becoming more dysfunctional than before. I want to find out what is the medium ground as far as solution to this issue, because yes, you can protest, yes, you can object, but at the end of the day, does it change? What is required to bring change, and how will you press to ensure change? Pastor Victor?
Well, what has to happen is that the whole business model operation of the power plant has to change. See, right now they're operating, well, it's important for us to say this. Our power company is owned 100% by a Canadian company called Emera. That company is more concerned about their profits than providing the proper service that's required to electricity customers. So their decisions are based on their corporate projections. Whereas the model that's needed here is one that we would call a municipal/partnership. We need a municipality approach to power generation on the island, where the decisions are made on what's in the best interest of the residential customers as well as the business customers. But when you have a company that has to satisfy shareholders, and most of those shareholders are in other countries, they're not Bahamian shareholders. It's important to mention the plant, the transmission and distribution equipment is not owned by the Bahamian people.
Wow.
It's owned by a foreign company, and their decisions are based on profits. They got projections. We are aware of projections that they have shared in public meetings where they project to make X amount of profits this year, they're going to make X amount of profits in the next year. And how do they maintain that? They need to increase the base rates. But we believe, like so many others on this island, the solution for power generation for Grand Bahama is to bring the rates down to make this place attractive for people to come to this island and become a destination that will be known as we have low, affordable, reliable power.
So, Jaquan, I guess you can take this one. Are there any recourse for consumers? For example, do they say, okay, because we're having challenges and we're not being able to deliver, if you're late 1 month and we give you a pass, we won't disconnect you? Are you seeing the trade-off? Are they slower to disconnections? Is there any rebate for consumers? Or is it straight up, pay us what you owe us no matter what, and we continue to do what we do?
Well, the basic answer to that question is simply no. There is no form of compensation for customers who are inexperienced, for business owners who are inconvenienced. You have so much business owners who complain about reduced power. They can't cut on their computers. They can't work their POS system. So, no one repays them for that. And I haven't seen up to the time we came in this newsroom of them introducing or announcing any type of rebate program for Grand Bahamians. And, it's funny that we even talk about that because they aren't. It's a stretch to even go there, is how I'll word it, because those who have appliances that are messed up, they have these creative ways and these loopholes, like the insurance companies, to not pay you for even the things that they mess up. So even before we even talk about compensation for what they are not doing, they don't even want to pay you for the things that they messed up that belong to you.
So the consumer just left there hoping and praying for somebody to come in and be the go-between and cause it. I can't imagine a power company responsible for these outages that take place like this, and it just totally demolishes or destroys your appliances, and then there's no plan in place to say, listen. And they make it so difficult legally to be able to even win a case if you apply for something that it seems almost impossible.
But it's important to add that because of their customer service policy when it comes to replacing appliances and equipment, there's been a number of particularly business customers that have had to take them to court. And they have won, right? But one company on this island lost over $20,000 worth of equipment because of the unstable nature of the electricity. And they had to take this matter to court in Nassau, and they won the court case.
Wow. Wow. It'll be interesting to see what pans out. People obviously want to know that there's transparency and recourse. We'll talk more about that when we come back from the break and talk more about the accountability and transparency part of it, as well as the impact on businesses, and we'll see what happens. When we come back, we'll speak with these community activists about their thoughts on the Grand Bahama Port Authority's announcement of suspend GBPC's rate application review. We'll talk about that. You're watching The Rundown from Grand Bahama. Stay with us. We're back after this.
That's the bear of the Bahamas. I like to go down. Oh yeah.
Well, what about me? What about you, what? Well, I thirsty too, you know. You want to see all the water out there? Well, why you don't give me your water, and then you go try and drink that salt water?
You crazy, eh?
I ain't the one talking to a dog, you know.
Ain't nobody can drink salt water.
Then why you won't give it to me? All dogs need fresh, cool water and sufficient shelter from the sun all year round, especially on the beach and during the hot summer months.
Summers are very hot here in the Bahamas, so please make sure all pets have ample, cool, fresh water in proper containers and sufficient shelter from the sun, even on the beach. And make sure all dog houses and kennels have proper ventilation. Let's make it Bahamian to be humane.
This message has been brought to you by the Bahamas Humane Society and the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
Is the Little Caesars Stuffed Crust Pizza. Get more pizza for less money. Only $12. It's a whole new level of pizza with cheese stuffed crust so spectacular that there's nothing left.
Pizza.
A delicious pepperoni pizza with the crust stuffed with lots of cheese and brushed with butter and garlic flavor and sprinkled with Parmesan cheese. Hot and ready Thursday to Saturday between 4 and 8 for only $12. Simply irresistible. And only at Little Caesars.
Pizza.
Grand Bahama, Sunday, October 13th. Due to the logistics and unstable weather pattern, we had to take it inside the Grand Lacan Ballroom. I'm a boatman. Featuring KB, Gino D, Nishi Ellis, T-Mac, Sweet Emily, Elon Moxie, Funky T, Lil Joe Cartwright, Sherrod Taylor, Wilfred Solomon, Veronica Bishop, Stevie S, Mama D, Colin McDonald, Papa Smurf, Shine 242, Recon Bahamas, Chad Gully and the VIP. Special guest from Turks and Caicos, the Provision Band, and host Super P. Sunday, October 13th at the Grand Lacan Ballroom. Doors open at 6 p.m. Showtime at 8 p.m. Admission $60. Tickets are available now at Pennyworth, Brenda's Booth, Coffee's on the Bay, Gizmos and Gadgets, and Signature Choices. For more info, phone 819-2233 Bahamas and 649-231-0018. TCI. I'm a boatman. Sunday, October 13th at the Grand Lacan Ballroom. KB and Fred. Sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism, Ministry for Grand Bahama, and Extreme Honor.
That's the bear of the Bahamas. I like to go down.
Welcome back to The Rundown, coming to you from Grand Bahama. And of course, a special good night to all of you in the Lion's Den. And of course, tuning into us by social media and YouTube. We see you on there and your comments and suggestions and so forth. And we're talking about Grandmama Power Company. I want to say before we continue, because we do invite people to come and give their views. We did invite the Grandmama Power Company to tonight's show. However, they've declined, citing that the company is currently in hurricane preparation mode. How convenient. That was their answer. That's their answer. We will go with that. So, gentlemen, let's bring it back in to Quan Swain and, of course, Pastor Eddie Victor, who have been persons who've been trying to keep the power company's feet to the fire, right, about what was going on. Before we get into the fact that they suspended this rate increase they were looking for, at least the Grandmama Port Authority suspended the go-ahead on it. Let's talk about really how this impacts. We'll talk about businesses first of all, because we already know the businesses are trying their best to survive in this environment where it's tough. There are enormous fees on Grand Bahama for business owners, and of course you're fighting an economy that's coming back, but there's still challenges. How does this power and reliability impact the companies like businesses? How are they facing it? Let's start with you, Daquan.
Well, I'll even say this. It's already extremely hard to have and operate a business in Grand Bahama. The economy is already challenged. And people and business owners were already challenged with high electricity bills. So now they have not only high electricity bills, but they now have inconsistent power supply. So at the end of the month, they look forward to an extremely high bill, but throughout the month, they now have to figure out when can we even operate, because you don't even know if you're gonna open your doors and an hour later, the power is gonna be off. Or you have those business owners who are to work, they're paying employees to be to work, but the employees can't do any work because they can't use the computers, they can't use the POS systems, they can't get work out because they're either on no power or what we call reduced power, where half of the building's on, but you can't operate anything. So it's extremely frustrating for business owners because who will compensate them for that? They still have to pay their employees, they still have to meet payroll, they still have to meet their expenses, and at the end of the day, they still have to pay a high power bill, and they're not even getting sufficient service.
Wow.
So it's extremely challenging.
You know, I wonder how, because they give a schedule. I've seen them release a schedule of what they call load shedding and so forth. Is that welcomed by, I mean, I know it's not welcome because people don't want to be cut off, but having a notice that at least help, or is that unreliable as well?
Well, you know, what had happened is that we got to the point where, okay, we know that the power is going to get cut off at some time in the day. Even with that schedule that they sent out, I might as well tell you, I found that schedule wasn't accurate or consistent. And so, but I need to mention this since you're talking about business. Let's talk about how it's affected churches. Our church, one Sunday, we had no power for 3 hours. So we had to roll out a generator, run our drop cords and everything, and we still had our service. We were still able to live stream because we have people watching us joining our service from as far away as India. But we had to improvise to make sure that we were able to accommodate our people. But we've had Zoom prayer meetings where the power shut off in the middle of the Zoom prayer meeting.
Wow.
All right. But one of the most probably disturbing thing that happened was my wife was a guest on a international show via Zoom. She's talking about Grand Bahama and the island, how beautiful it is. And in the middle of the interview, the power goes off. And this is at 11 a.m. during the day. And so it disrupted that interview. But she was talking about Grand Bahama. And I was able to quickly put some measures in place using Wi-Fi from my cell phone to get her back on, you know, but, and that even, we had a problem after 15 minutes, so she couldn't get back on the show. Wow. So that shows you the major inconveniences. That's just one set of stories, but there are many other stories out there that you can hear about.
So sorry and unfortunate. I want to get your thoughts on the Port Authority announcing to suspend the rate application review. A decision was supposed to be made by December 2nd, but they've now suspended that. Your response to that being suspended?
Well, this is where you see the Grand Bahama Port Authority is now trying to, you know, how I really want to say it, but I'd say cover themselves.
Yeah, because one on the same.
Yeah, so they're trying to cover themselves because honestly, if we really look at it, the Grand Bahama Port Authority is equally to blame just as the Grand Bahama Power Company because they have a regulatory framework where the GBPA is supposed to be monitoring system performance losses. They are supposed to submit those every single month. And then there's another report that they're supposed to submit every quarter. This report shows the available generational capacity and it shows the state of the generational assets. So it would show a decline if some are going out or about to go out. Because they don't have proper trained experts on this regulatory committee that they didn't want to tell us who was on the committee because it's just their shareholders and some employees with no utility experience. They don't know what to look for to monitor to see if something will happen. So because they failed to do their job in their regulatory framework, they're now trying to appease the public by saying, okay, we're going to suspend it. Why not just say we're not doing it? You know, it's just a way, it's smoke and mirrors, just like their bland statements that they put out that has a lot of words that says absolutely nothing. It's one and the same. It's smoke and mirrors because now they're trying to, after the fact, because they know they didn't do what they're supposed to do and they haven't been doing their job as a regulator. And, you know, it's funny that we talk about that because there's this big fight about regulation now, but the only time we see them in a regulatory capacity is when it's time to increase rates or when it's time to add new fees to us. But a regulator is supposed to protect the consumer first. But the only time we see them in a regulatory capacity is to increase rates or put new fees on us.
I was going to ask you about that, and I thought about it. Do you believe that there is accountability and transparency with the power company, or does that need to be fully addressed?
It is clear to us what Daquan has said, that when it comes to regulation, the regulator is supposed to protect the consumer. That's the purpose of a regulator. We have seen the opposite of that. And because we've seen the opposite of that, it's important to note, since we're talking about blackouts and the load shedding, we have known for 9 years, note what I'm going to say, for 9 years, that the power company could not handle what is known as peak load capacity. If every single customer was to come online and turn on everything, the power company couldn't handle it. So this was a problem that was going to eventually happen, but we knew 9 years ago they couldn't handle it. So with the regulatory framework, you should have been able to realize that not only did they not have the capacity to handle peak load capacity, but their generation output, they should have realized that you come into the summer, you should have a summer plan in place to be able to handle the increased generation. And then on top of that, we had an unusual year with record heat temperatures. All right, so you have air conditioning running, more people buying air conditioners, and they were not ready for it. And it only can be bad management decisions.
Wow, wow. So I start right where I end right where I started, and that is, what now? What next? What is the way forward? And how do we not find ourselves a year from now sitting around the same table talking about the same issues? What do we do?
Well, honestly, I'll tell you, it's going to be a long road ahead for Grand Bahama with this issue. It's no better way to say it. It's no nicer way to say it, because right now we're in a place where supplemental power is making up more than the power than the installed generated power. So that basically means that most of what the electricity that we're generating right now is coming from rented generators. So we're going to see increased power bills because the operational expenses is added in the base rate. So we're going to expect that. And now we're going to expect added fuel costs as well because it now costs more to run those generators. And then what we're going to see also is we're going to see ERCA, we're going to see the GBPA, we're going to see the GBPC now all attack each other in a legal way. Because one is claiming they're the regulator, the next one is claiming no, we're the regulator, one is intervening. So now we're going to see a nasty legal battle that's going to go on for years, I could assume, because we had a legal battle now that's been going on with them for years. So we're going to probably see a continuation of that. Injunctions may be filed. So I could assure you that Grand Bahamians can now expect to see a legal battle between all these entities to decide, firstly, who makes decisions for this company on behalf of Grand Bahamians. And then once that's decided, then we could move forward. But until then, we have to really understand who is regulating the company first to then now move to what are going to be the real policies and plans that we could put in place to protect Grand Bahamians and not profits.
Wow. Pastor Victor, I'll give you the final part.
Well, to add to what was said, when you look at the regulation and the dispute, the power company, along with the Port Authority, filed a legal action in the Supreme Court to challenge the ERCA as the regulator. So we're going to see this matter, come out into the courts, but it's been in the courts for 8 years, right? 8 years, all right? So what you have to now, moving forward, number one, the rate application needs to be completely rejected.
Okay.
That's number two. There needs to be a re-examination of this present company to determine whether we keep Emira with this power company or we get another company. The other thing is that the dispute is within the territory of the city of Freeport. Outside of Freeport, ERCA should be approving the prices. And when we say outside of Freeport, we're talking about West Grand Bahama, East Grand Bahama, Pinders Point, Lewis Yard, Hunters, Mactown, Williamstown, Smith Point, and Maidatown.
So those are outside of the jurisdictions of the port.
Of the port. And those customers, they should be regulated by ERCA. So moving forward, that needs to be established. So let them, they're going to fight over Freeport, but we could set the people free that are outside of Freeport and work on the problem within the city limits of Freeport.
There you go. All there needs to be is regulation. Yeah. Government needs to do what the government does, and we can begin to see relief, even if it's for a portion of the people, until you're able to fully address it. Pastor Eddie Victor, to Clint Swain, it's always a pleasure having you and talking to us here on The Rundown. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
That's our show for us. Again, just for those of you who wondered, the power company, the client coming on saying they're busy preparing or doing the work of hurricane preparation mode. That's our show for tonight. Thank you to all our sponsors who sponsored. On behalf of all of us here at ZNS, I'm Clint Watson. Thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to join us at 11 o'clock for the Bahamas Tonight at 11 with Royston Jones. He'll, of course, have the latest for you regarding the storm and, of course, anything you need to know. For all of us, thanks for joining. Good night.